But you colluded, not alone colluded, you instigated this yourself by writing the letter to the Garda station.
Well, I suppose if you ignore the fact that the Gardaí approached me, you could say I instigated.
Yes, of course.
That is ignoring the fact that the guards approached me about it.
That the guards didn't approach you. A particular guard did.
A guard approached me.
And suggested to you in a friendly way you could get this written off by writing to the Garda station saying that you were on your way to the Dáil. And you decided, yes, I'll do that. What a good idea. You wrote to the Garda station and you had the thing written off. So the person primarily to blame for this is yourself.
Well,
and you're trying to make a virtue out of how principled you were and that you're now disclosing the whole thing.
No, I'm not trying to make a virtue out of how principled I am. I'm trying to make the point that I did not make the initial move. I was approached by a Garda.
Yes, it is that he, in the course of the conversation, just said to you, what's this about you and the penalty point?
Yeah, and I explained the story to him
and
of what I was doing.
Happened to mention an entirely irrelevant point, that you were on your way to the Garda, that you're on your way to the
He asked me what I was doing, so I said...
You were driving your car, that was the only relevant thing.
That could have been an answer.
Entirely irrelevant to the point. So it looks as though you're up to your neck in this, Ming.
Well, maybe it looks like that.
And rather, it is obvious that you are up to your neck in this thing. You were the person who instigated this thing that you now are inferring is corrupt.
Well, my point is that this is endemic. This is something that goes on. And I was approached by a guard. And if ever you wanted proof that it goes on...
You are making a complaint calling the Gardaí essentially corrupt, and again, on this issue, when you yourself were integral in the whole issue.
But the reality is that it was a guard who instigated this.
But why did you have to follow up?
No, I didn't have to follow through on it.
You were primarily to blame for this.
Well, that's your conclusion.
That is it. What do you think, Niamh?
Well, nobody held a gun to your head
when
you were writing that letter. Can I ask what was in the letter? I think that's important to know. What excuse did you give? Did you claim that you were actually engaged in Dáil business during the making of that phone call?
No, I wasn't engaged in Dáil business during the phone call, and I didn't claim that I was engaged in Dáil business. But I was on my way to a meeting when I answered it. Now, I was told that was relevant by him, and I wrote off on that basis. But
and do you think Do you think there's something wrong with the Gardaí cancelling penalty points for people in your circumstances? And you were the one that asked for the thing to be cancelled.
I think there is something wrong with it because it isn't
done for everyone. But you were the one that asked for it. You asked for the penalty points to be cancelled because you thought you were entitled to be on your mobile phone when going to the Dáil.
Well, I don't think I'm entitled to be on my mobile phone when I went to the Dáil, and I know I was wrong to be on my mobile phone, and that's why I was quite happy to take the points, but I was approached by the guard initially. Maybe I shouldn't have bothered following through on it.
It's a trivial point that you were approached by the Garda initially. The significant point is that you were the one who asked the Gardaí to cancel the penalty points because you were on your way to the Dáil.
I didn't initially ask that. It was suggested to me by a member of the Garda Síochána who met me on the street.
Well, John, what do you make of this, Joe?
Well, a couple of things occurred to me. I suppose the first point is that the moral high ground is a lonely place, but I just want to...
Moral high ground is a swamp.
Yes.
A bog, if you don't mind me saying
so. The question, I mean, there's two ways to look at this. At a minimum, it was very naive. I mean, an experienced politician wouldn't write a letter at the behest of a sergeant because you compromise yourself immediately.
He didn't write at the behest of the sergeant.
On the suggestion of the sergeant. So I would just ask you, I mean, Deputy Flanagan, did the sergeant suggest that you write it? If he suggested it, did you... what was in the letter? I think it was foolish at a minimum to write it, and I would go so far as to say that you couldn't possibly be a whistleblower, effectively a whistleblower on other people who were wrongly, if it be the case, wrongly getting penalty points put aside. You can't be a whistleblower and at the same time a participant in the thing. Yeah. So if the suggestion is that there are 10 people involved in this process, that there were 10 members of the Oireachtas. That's been bandied around. I know there's a commission of inquiry going on, or an inquiry within the Gardaí. But it's alleged that there are 10 members of the Oireachtas involved. Now that number increases to 11 tonight with respects. I'm happy if you can explain it, but I'm not making specific allegations, but the question arises.
Well, my point is, and I will say it again, I did not approach the guards. The guards approached me.
Irrelevant.
Well, let me finish. I was approached by a guard on the street, and he basically asked me what happened, and then after basically what I was doing, I explained where I was going. You are suggesting that I did that specifically so that he could say, well, then I don't have to pay the penalty points. He suggested that, he said that to me. My first thoughts were, no, there's no point in doing that. And he said it again. He said, no, you look at really.
This is irrelevant.
The thing was that he was suggesting I had done nothing wrong.
It is irrelevant. And you're making a big deal out of that to distract from the main point that you instigated this. You wrote to the Garda station asking for the cancellation of the penalty points on the spurious grounds that you're on your way to the Dáil.
There is no doubting that I wrote to the guards, but the facts are that I was contacted, I was basically, it was suggested to me by the guard who met me
God,
on
you're
the
in
street.
serious denial. You're in really serious denial
Vincent,
over what you did.
Vincent, but I just said, ask Deputy Flanagan as well about the question around the local authority officials. I mean,
can we get to that in a minute?
Sure,
that's
a very
interesting point about that too.
Yeah.
Let's move on to that one. Now, you said that you were on your way to council meeting or something. You went on your way to the council offices in Roscommon, and you were on your mobile phone again. You were stopped by a Garda, and he informed you that you would be getting a notice of penalty point. You'd be getting a fixed penalty point notice, and you then bumped into an official.
I didn't bump into an official. I went to the meeting that I was going to. And when I went into the meeting, I said, I'm just after being pulled like an idiot on my phone, and I just got penalty points, etc. And then we spoke about a variety of other things or whatever. And
who did you say this to?
I just said it to the people at the meeting.
What meeting was it?
It was just a meeting of Roscommon County Council with various people.
Councillors and
no,
officials?
Just with executive officials, yeah.
Right. And
with respect to Deputy Flanagan, you will have to name the official for the sake of other officials. I mean, I sat on a local authority for a number of years too, and I'm making no personal allegation, but I'm just saying that I never met an official like that. I've never met him.
You're making a very good point, actually, about that in fairness to the other officials, in my opinion, you've got to name them. Now, I'm not asking you to name them on the programme this evening, but I think you've got to do it in the Dáil tomorrow, because there is you're impugning the reputation of all the officials who were at this meeting.
As I said in the Dáil today, I have a letter written to send to Minister Alan Shatter with the names of the two people on it.
But what you've now said and what you said in the Dáil today, what you said in the Dáil today impugns the reputation of all the officials that attended that meeting, not just the official who later spoke to you.
Well, then maybe the official who contacted me should come forward then.
You're the one who have made... Again, you are the person who has impugned the reputation of all the officials who were at that meeting. And you're saying that it's responsibility of somebody else to undo the damage you've done. Is that it?
No, but
what are you saying?
I felt it would be better if they would come forward, and they've been given an opportunity to come forward.
It would be better if you hadn't impugned the reputation of the several officials, that you had wrongly impugned the reputation of several officials in Roscommon Council.
Well, that's your opinion.
The issue here...
It certainly is my opinion. And do you disagree with that opinion?
Well, that I don't think I have, no. I think the person in there who contacted me knows who they are, and I think they should come forward.
Okay, let's pursue this a bit. You told a group of officials that you had been penalty points were going to be you were going to be
that I just got 2 penalty points and was stopped by the guard. Would you not say that to someone if it happened to you afterwards, if it was on your head, you were thinking about it?
I don't know, maybe I would. And then subsequently you were approached by this other official, by one of the officials you spoke to, who said that he could arrange to have this penalty points removed.
No, he said they were gone. Did he not? Did he not say he was a fait accompli?
He had spoke to someone in the local station, which is right beside the county council buildings, and he told me that basically the points were gone. That was the last we'd hear about it.
complain to him about what he'd done?
No, I didn't. No.
Why not?
Because I just was a little baffled and bemused as to why it had happened in the first place.
You now are asserting that Dáil today that what was done was absolutely wrong, was part of a corrupt culture in the Garda force.
And it is.
And when you discovered that you were a beneficiary of this corrupt culture in the Garda force, you didn't complain.
No, I didn't complain, but I had every intention of coming out with it in the future and to make a point about it.
Why didn't you do it there and then?
Because I didn't see that there'd be any benefit out of it or any mileage out of it or that anyone would listen.
Well, no. There was clear benefit out of it, that you wouldn't be a beneficiary of what you regard as a corrupt practice or a corrupt culture in the Garda Síochána.
Yeah,
but
true.
you were a willing beneficiary of this. You didn't object. You didn't contact the Garda station and say, this is wrong. I object to the culture that encourages this sort of thing, and I want the penalty points to be reattached to me. Did you?
No, I didn't, no.
And you now complain, you have the nerve to complain then about a corrupt culture of which you were a beneficiary.
But can anyone deny that there is actually a corrupt culture in there when it comes to penalty points?
The question arises here, Deputy Flanagan. This would be in some way bearable and tolerable if you hadn't set yourself up as judge and jury over so many people, and maybe I would only appeal to you to desist from that kind of thing. I mean, I was watching this programme on another night when you made references to Gardaí at a very sensitive time. I know you apologise for that and I admire that fact, but you can't be you can't set yourself up in a judgmental situation as the conscience of the nation, as an arbiter of what's right and wrong, and then be participant in the wrong that you identify. You have to be on one side or the other.
Vincent.
If one's to set themselves up as judge and jury over everybody else, there is no way around this. So you were either very naive. It's very naive to participate in this kind of activity and then be a whistleblower.
You could say more naive. It's hypocrisy of a high order.
Well, we're talking about transparency here at the most basic level. The fact that there was a council official, the fact that there was Garda and yourself. But, I think it's important to note the point of difference between the two different laws that we're talking about here. There is a system whereby, through the Pulse system, senior Gardaí can cancel penalty points for somebody, and there's a record of that. Now, that takes place when somebody might be rushing someone to hospital, or if there's somebody giving birth in the back seat of the car, if there's a doctor trying to get to an elderly patient, if the speed camera didn't catch the driver's reg plate or something along those lines. That in itself is actually a transparent system because there is a record of the fact that the points were kept. So that's one element of it. The other side of this is the fact that there's an archaic law that allows politicians to claim that they're on Dáil business.
They can't be arrested, just arrested.
They can't be arrested,
but they can be stopped and they can be apprehended for normal.
But the other issue is that they
thing.
can take their points and they can take a fine. Sure. So in this situation, Luke could have very easily turned around and said, thank you for notifying me of this, but no thanks, I'll take my points. And I mean, I would have to put it to you that if you are claiming that there's low-level corruption within the Gardaí, do you yourself believe that you engaged in a corrupt act? And by extension of that, are you corrupt in that regard?
Well, I would say I was corrupt if I had actually approached them. But the fact that they approached me suggests that there is an endemic problem in it. What I did, getting my penalty points cancelled, it was wrong. There is no argument with it, and it was naive, and it was a stupid thing to do, and it was a mistake.
Flanagan, that really what puts it into focus properly is the fact that you then were part of this whistleblowing process. I mean, that's the bizarre bit.
Which again, many of the people that you're pointing the finger at there may have genuinely had their points wiped for a reason like I explained earlier, whereas in your situation, you have admitted you weren't technically on Dáil business. I mean, there are previous politicians, Vincent, who've had situations where they've gotten out of a drink driving charge because of this particular law.
They didn't get up in the Dáil afterwards and complain about the Garda culture
true.
that let them off.
Very true. I'm not defending Luke in any way.
Vincent, to say to you, my understanding of the very archaic provision in relation to going to the Dáil and back, my understanding of that provision is that you can't be stopped. I mean, you can't be arrested as such You can go through a normal checkpoint.
It goes back to the
but
Civil War, as
you
far as
can't
I
be arrested.
understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was
Goes back to
there was
Civil
a
War.
celebrated case
And it
of a
was to
Sligo
stop-
TD, wasn't it? or
Yeah, and it
whatever
was to stop
stopped, yeah.
TDs being stopped
Yeah.
from getting to Dáil
to
business.
get to the
by-
vote. Yeah. But my understanding is that normal routine activity can ensue, but that you can't actually be arrested until you go to the Dáil or whatever until after.
Look, can I just ask you another
And
question?
it's
Where were
bizarre.
you when you were arrested for the first offence, the one in June, or when you were stopped in regard to the first penalty points issue in June the 3rd, 2011? Where were
I
you?
was in Castlereagh, on the way out of Castlereagh, and basically pulled in.
Yeah. I've often heard of people digging a hole for themselves, but God, you've dug some big hole for yourself today, haven't you?
Well, that's what you think.
How do you think, Niamh?
I do think there are more questions now around this than answers. And
there are answers.
well,
There
I know
are
that you said in the Dáil earlier today, and I was texting you earlier today, and you were saying that you are going to try and get your penalty points back. I'm not sure if that's actually possible. I'm not sure if they can endorse
And
your
why
license
would you do
once.
that anyway?
Because quite
you're
clearly
caught.
I deserved
Because you've been
them.
caught.
Well, because I deserved them, because I was on a mobile phone.
But this, you are asking them to be reinstated now only because you were caught. And
Well-
you're taking credit for this.
Well, the reality is that I had planned to deal with this and to come out about it, and if that resulted in me getting the penalty points, so be it.
But the fact
why-
that you were keeping it a secret at all is a big problem for you. You know, I think tomorrow you should release the letter into the public domain. But the fact that this hadn't come out as you were pointing the finger at various Garda actions means that you can't, I suppose, continue as part of that campaign. I wouldn't maybe imagine, have Joan and Claire spoken to you about not being part of that campaign anymore?
We'll see what'll happen.
The point I made earlier about the naivety is, I would have assumed, and this maybe goes with a little bit of experience, that if I were approached tomorrow by a Garda sergeant and he suggested a course of action like that to me, I mean, I would know that I became his prisoner after that I became compromised by him. So that's why I said...
become his prisoner?
His prisoner. You can't go along with a process like that at the behest of a Garda sergeant and be an independent operator afterwards. But because once you accept that, the very fact that you go down that road compromises you. In other words, one would assume that a person in public office, if that was suggested to them that they avail of this alibi or that alibi, you would just have to have the wisdom to ignore it and go and take it on the chin.
We're going to talk about the chaos in the Dáil technical group, but I don't think we need to get into that this evening. We've had further indication of utter chaos among people in relation to people in the Dáil technical group. We're going to take a break, and we'll get to some of your texts and tweets on all this issue immediately after the break, and we'll also preview tomorrow morning's newspapers. Join us then.